Britain's Prime Minister explains why Britain decided to leave the European Union.
The third bridge on I-70 is finally in place after months of work.
And West Virginia flooding is affecting homes and schools.
In the aftermath of the British vote to leave the European Union,
British Prime Minister David Cameron addressed the British Parliament for the first time since announcing his resignation on Friday. NBC's Matt Bradley reports. John Kerry continues to shuttle between Europe and London this morning,
trying to make sure that whatever deal does come out of it, it ends up with the European Union and Britain as united and strong American allies in defense.
The U.S. Navy has turned to cloud-based technology to prevent drunk driving. The technology would allow volunteers to take turns driving drunk friends home. The efforts tested in South Carolina could also help ease tensions in Japan, where the large military presence has supposedly led to more crime. It's been successful so far and will be used throughout the Navy. Allegiant Air is the first discount carrier to operate at Newark Liberty International Airport since a federal lawsuit charged United with monopolizing the airport. Final approval has been given to start offering select flights in November. Tickets are proposed to be as low as $39 one way, but that comes with many asterisks. Volkswagen owners with 2-liter diesel engines can now choose to either sell their car back to the company or get a repair under a settlement worth nearly $15 billion of claims tied to an emissions cheating scandal. Based on this figure, it would be the biggest scandal settlement in U.S. history.
Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both focus on the economy today. Trump is in Pennsylvania and Clinton's out west.
After Clinton unleashed her new weapon against Trump, Tracy Potts has more. In other Trump news, he's hired Ted Cruz's former communications director to head up his media team.
UK Prime Minister David Cameron will travel to Brussels today.
The top of the agenda, explain to Europe's stunned leaders why Britain voted for Brexit. Cameron will meet the European Commission President and Council President. He'll then have dinner with the leaders of the 27 other EU member states. Member states are pushing for the UK to invoke Article 50. That's the formal process to withdraw from the EU. The UK and EU need to work together to make the best of the decision the British people took in leaving the EU. Fellow EU leaders are awaiting what Britain will demand in forthcoming negotiations. Meanwhile, candidates hoping to succeed Cameron will be jockeying for position, with nominations for the Conservative Party leadership set to open Monday. Even more rain is in the forecast for West Virginia to add to the worst flooding in the area in 1,000 years. The death toll is now revised to 23 after 2 men who were assumed dead were found alive. Many living in the area are facing the biggest test of their lives as the floodwaters tear apart their lives bit by bit. Houses are all but lost. Floodwaters are taking over school hallways, and whole communities are full of flood debris. 500 National Guard troops are helping out, and 200 more are expected to come. GOP convention leaders will provide the first glimpse of this year's set design. Construction on the stage began this Saturday, exactly 1 month before the start of the convention on Monday, July 18th. This year's convention will be held at the Quicken Loans Arena in Cleveland. Egypt Air Flight 804's black box may be able to explain why the flight crashed suddenly. The French Aircraft Investigation Bureau was able to fix one of the black boxes and is currently working on the other. Although they do not have access yet to the information on the memory chip, the black boxes are being tested to see if they are readable. A railroad crossing in southern Colorado had been targeted for safety improvements after a family of 5 were killed when an Amtrak train slammed into their minivan.
The rural crossing 15 miles from the New Mexico border.
You may need to find an alternative route from Broadway during the nighttime hours this week.
East Broadway and Orr Street in downtown Columbia will be blocked off for part of the week. KOMU 8's Rachel Lee joins us in the studio now for more on the construction that's going on downtown.
Mississippi police say there are no injuries or fatalities reported after a large explosion and fire at a natural gas plant. Local authorities received a report about the explosion at a BP plant around 11:30 last night. The company says although employees were at the site when the blast happened, everyone got out okay. BP would not comment on how the explosion happened. Missouri Governor Jay Nixon has vetoed a sweeping gun rights bill passed by the Republican legislature. The measure would have allowed most people to carry a concealed firearm even if they haven't gone through conceal and carry training. Another provision would expand the state's castle doctrine to allow house guests like babysitters to use deadly force against intruders. Nixon's veto doesn't necessarily mean the bill is dead, though. It could pass with enough support to override the governor's actions. Credit rating agency Standard & Poor's announced Monday night it was stripping Britain of its prized AAA credit rating. The S&P says the Brexit vote will lead to a, quote, less predictable, stable, and effective policy framework in the UK. Meanwhile, Brussels and Britain already are seeing the impact of Brexit as business owners will now need to negotiate new relationships with the other 27 member nations of the EU. The current president and first ever principal of Tilton Catholic High School will resign later this week. Christy Wolf spent 6 years building the school from scratch and gave just 6 days notice that she's resigning. Some people ask if there were any tensions leading to the quick decision. Wolf says there was no conflict and wanted her resignation to coincide with the end of the fiscal year on Thursday. She says she wants to take time off to rest, but has not figured out what the next step in her career is. She was very teary-eyed talking about leaving the position.
If you till the crops and you plant without ever stopping, that soil becomes worn out and useless, and I am determined not to work myself until I hit the point that I'm no good anymore.
Sister Julie Brand has taken over administrative duties, but for now, she says she does not want the position permanently. School officials say they're working to find a new president before school starts in 50 days. Even programs that offer support to the community can use some help every once in a while.
Sure. 7 organizations in Columbia are set to get a mass donation from State Farm later this morning. KOMU 8's Meg Hillings live outside of the Family Impact Center with a look at how organizations plan to use its chunk of that money.